Alrighty. We're gonna do that every time. Still got a ways to go. It's a long, long book. Chapter 24. Now the morning was late May. The sky was high and clear, and the wind blew warm on Robert Jordan's shoulders. The snow was going fast, and they were eating breakfast. There were two big sandwiches of meat and the goatee cheese apiece, and Robert Jordan had cut thick slices of onion with his clasp knife and put them on each side of the meat and cheese between the chunks of bread. You will have a you will have a breath that will carry through the forest to the fascists, Augustine said, his own mouth full. Give me the wineskin, and I will rinse the mouth, Robert Jordan said, his mouth full of meat, cheese, onion, and chewed bread. Never said what they did with that cavalry guy's body. He had never been hungrier, and he filled his mouth with wine, faintly tarry tasting from the leather bag, and swallowed. Then he took another big mouthful of wine, lifting the bag up to let the jet of wine spurt into the back of his mouth, the wineskin touching the needles of the blind of pine branches that covered the automatic rifle as he lifted his hand, his head leaning against the pine branches as he bent it back to let the wine run down. Dost thou want this other sandwich? Augustine asked him, handing it toward him across the gun. No, thank you. Eat it. I cannot. I am not accustomed to eat in the morning. You do not want it? Truly? Nay, take it. Robert Jordan took it and laid it on his lap while he got the onion out of his side jacket pocket where the grenades were and opened his knife to slice it. He cut off a thin sliver of the surface that had dirtied in his pocket, then cut a thick slice. An outer segment fell, and he picked it up and bent the circle together and put it into the sandwich. Eatest thou always onions for breakfast? Augustine asked. When there are any? Do all in thy country do this? Nay, Robert Jordan said. It is looked on badly there. I am glad, Augustine said. I have always considered America a civilized country. What hast thou against the onion? The odor, nothing more. Otherwise, it is like the rose. Robert Jordan grinned at him with his mouth full. Like the rose, he said. Mighty like the rose. A rose, is an onion. Thy onions are affecting thy brain, Augustine said. Take care. An onion is an onion is an onion, Robert Jordan said cheerily. And he thought, a stone is a stein, is a rock, is a boulder, is a pebble. Rinse thy mouth with wine, Augustine said. Thou art very rare, Inglace. There is great difference between thee and the last dynamiter who worked with us. There is one great difference. Tell it to me. I am alive and he is dead, Robert Jordan said. Then, what's the matter with you, he thought. Is that the way to talk? Does food make you that slap happy? What are you, drunk on onions? Is that all it means to you now? It never meant much, he told himself truly. He tried it to make it mean something, but it never did. There is no need to lie in the time that is left. No, he said seriously now. That one was a man who had suffered greatly. And thou? Hast thou not suffered? No, said Robert Jordan. I am of those who suffer little. Me also, Augustine told him. There are those who suffer and those who do not. I suffer very little. Less bad, Robert Jordan tipped up the wineskin again. And with this, less. I suffer for others, as all good men should. But for myself, very little. Hast thou a wife? No. Me neither. But now you have the Maria. Yes. There is a rare thing, Augustine said. Since she came to us at the train, Pilar has kept her away from all as fiercely as though she were in a convent of Carmelites. You cannot imagine with what fierceness she guarded her. You come, and she gives her to thee as a present. What does that seem to thee? It was not thus. How was it, then? She has put her in my care. And thy care is to joder with her all night? With luck. What a manner to care for one. Do you not understand that one can take good care of one thus? Yes, but with such care could have been furnished by any one of us. Let us not talk of it any more, Robert Jordan said. I care for her seriously. Seriously? As there can be nothing more serious in this world. And afterwards, after this of the bridge, she goes with me. And then, Augustine said, that no one speaks of it further, and that the two of you go with all luck. He lifted the leather wine bag and took a long pull, then handed it to Robert Jordan. One thing more, Inglace, he said. Of course. I have cared much for her, too. Robert Jordan put his hand on his shoulder. Much, Augustine said. Much. More than one is able to imagine. I can imagine. She has made an impression on me that does not dissipate. I can imagine. Look, I say this to thee in all seriousness. Say it. I have never touched her, nor had anything to do with her, but I care for her greatly. Inglace, do not treat her lightly. Because she sleeps with thee, she is no whore. I will care for her. I believe thee. But more, you do not understand how such a girl would be if there had been no revolution. You have much responsibility. This one truly has suffered much. She is not as we are. I will marry her. Nay, not that. There is no need for that under the Revolution. But, he nodded his head, It would be better. I will marry her, Robert Jordan said, and could feel his throat swelling as he said it. I care for her greatly. Later, later, Augustine said, when it is convenient. The important thing is to have the intention. I have it. Listen, Augustine said, I am speaking too much of a matter in which I have no right to intervene. But hast thou known many girls of this country? A few. Whores? Some who were not. How many? Several. And did you sleep with them? No. You see? Yes. What I mean is that this Maria does not do this lightly. Nor I. If I thought you did, I would have shot you last night as you lay with her. For this we kill much here. Listen, old one, Robert Jordan said. It is because of the lack of time that there has been informality. What we do not have is time. Tomorrow we must fight. To me, that is nothing. But for the Maria and me, it means that we must live all of our life in this time. And a day and a night is little time, Augustine said. Yes, but there has been yesterday, and the night before, and last night. Look, Augustine said, if I can aid thee. No, we are all right. If I could do anything for thee, or for the cropped head. No, truly, there is little one man can do for another. No, there is much. What? No matter what passes today and tomorrow in respect to combat, give me thy confidence, and obey even though the orders may appear wrong. You have my confidence. Since this of the cavalry and the sending away of the horse, that was nothing. You see that we are working for one thing, to win the war. Unless we win, all other things are futile. Tomorrow we have a thing of great importance, of true importance. Also, we will have combat. In combat, there must be discipline, for many things are not as they appear. Discipline must come from trust and confidence. Augustine spat on the ground. The Maria and all such things are apart, he said, that you and the Maria should make use of what time there is, as two human beings. If I can aid thee, I am at thy orders. But for the thing of tomorrow, I will obey thee blindly. If it is necessary that one should die for the thing of tomorrow, one goes gladly, and with the heart light. Thus do I feel, Robert Jordan said. But to hear it from thee brings pleasure. And more, Augustine said. That one above, he pointed toward Primitivo, is a dependable value. The Pilar is much, much more than thou canst imagine. The old man Anselmo also, Andreas also, Eladio also. Very quiet, but a dependable element. And Fernando. I do not know how thou hast appreciated him. It is true he is heavier than Mercury. He is fuller of boredom than a steer drawing a cart on the high ground. But to fight and to do as he is told. Es muy hombre. thou wilt see. We are lucky. No, we have two weak elements, the gypsy and Pablo. But the band of Sordo are as much better than we are as we are better than goat manure. All is well then. Yes, Augustine said, but I wish it was for today. Me too, to finish with it. But it is not. Do you think it will be bad? It can be. But thou art very cheerful now, Ingles. Yes, me also, in spite of this, of the Maria and all. Do you know why? No, me neither. Perhaps it is the day. The day is good. Who knows? Perhaps it is that we will have action. I think it is that, Robert Jordan said. But not today. Of all things, of all importance, we must avoid it today. As he spoke, he heard something. It was a noise far off that came above the sound of the warm wind in the trees. He could not be sure, and he held his mouth open and listened, glancing up at Primitivo as he did so. He thought he heard it, but then it was gone. The wind was blowing in the pines, and now Robert Jordan strained all of himself to listen. Then he heard it faintly coming down the wind. It is nothing tragic with me, he heard Augustine said. That I should never have the Maria is nothing. I will go with the horse as always. Shut up, he said, not listening and lying beside him, his head having been turned away. Augustine looked over at him suddenly. ¿Qué pasa? He asked. Robert Jordan put his head over his own mouth, and went on listening. There it came again. It came faint, muted, dry, and far away. But there was no mistaking it now. It was this precise, crackling, curling roll of automatic rifle fire. It sounded as though pack after pack of miniature firecracker was going off at a distance that was almost out of hearing. Robert Jordan looked up at Primitivo, who had his head up now, his face looking toward them, his hand cupped to his ear. As he looked, Primitivo pointed up the mountain toward the highest country. They are fighting at El Sordo's, Robert Jordan said. And let us go to aid them, Augustine said. Collect the people. Vámonos. No, Robert Jordan said. We stay here. Uh-oh. is this? Another short one? Another short one? Chapter 27 is kind of long. But I'll just read the next two. I don't know. 20 minutes. There's no alcohol in this. It's weird. Chapter 25. Robert Jordan looked up at where Primitivo stood now in his lookout post, holding his rifle and pointing. He nodded his head, but the man kept pointing, putting his hand to his ear and then pointing insistently, and as though he could not possibly have been understood. Do you stay with this gun, and unless it is sure that they are coming in, do not fire. And then not only until they reach that shrub, Robert Jordan pointed. Do you understand? Yes, but... No but. I will explain to thee later. I go to Primitivo. Anselmo was by him, and he said to the old man, Viejo, stay there with the gun. He spoke slowly and unhurriedly. You must not fire unless cavalry is actually entering. If they merely present themselves, he must let them alone, as we did before. If he must fire, hold the legs of the tripod firm for him, and hand him the pans when they are empty. Good, the old man said. And La Granja? Later. Robert Jordan climbed up, over and around the gray boulders that were wet now under his hands as he pulled himself up. The sun was melting the snow on them fast. The tops of the boulders were dry, and as he climbed, he looked across the country and saw the pine woods, and the long open glade, and the dip of the country before the high mountains beyond. There he stood beside Primitivo in a hollow behind two boulders, and the short, brown-faced man said to him, They are attacking Sordo. What is it that we do? Nothing, Robert Jordan said. He heard the firing clearly here, and as he looked across the country, he saw, far off, across the distant valley, where the country rose steeply again, a troop of cavalry ride out of the timber and across the snowy slope, riding uphill in the direction of the firing. He saw the oblong double line of men and horses dark against the snow as they forced at an angle up the hill. He watched the double line top the ridge and go into the farther timber. We have to aid them, Primitivo said. His voice was dry and flat. It is impossible, Robert Jordan told him. I have expected this all morning. How? They went to steal horses last night. The snow stopped, and they tracked them up there. But we have to aid them, Primitivo said. We cannot leave them alone to this. Those are our comrades. Robert Jordan put his hand on the other man's shoulder. We can do nothing, he said. If we could, I would do it. There is a way to reach there from above. We can take that way with the horses and the two guns. this one below, and thine. We can aid them thus. Listen, Robert Jordan said. That is what I listen to. That is what I listen to, Primitivo said. The firing was rolling in overlapping waves. Then they heard the noise of hand grenades, heavy and sodden in the dry rolling of the automatic rifle fire. They are lost, Robert Jordan said. They were lost when the snow stopped. If we go there, we are lost too. It is impossible to divide what force we have. There was a gray stubble of beard stippled over Primitivo's jaws, his lips, and his neck. The rest of his face was flat brown with a broken, flattened nose and deep-set gray eyes. And watching him, Robert Jordan saw the stubble twitching at the corners of his mouth and over the cord of his throat. Listen to it, he said. It is a massacre. If they have surrounded the hollow, it is that, Robert Jordan said. Some may have gotten out. Coming on them now, we could take them from behind, Primitivo said. Let 4 of us go with the horses. And then what? What happens after you take them from behind? We join with Sordo. To die there? Look at the sun. The day is long. The sky was high and cloudless, and the snow was hot on their backs. There were big bare patches now on the southern slope of the open glade below them, and the snow was all dropped from the pine trees. The boulders below them that had been wet as the snow melted were steaming faintly now in the hot sun. You have to stand it, Robert Jordan said. I que aguantarse. There are things like this in a war. But there is nothing we can do, truly. Primitivo looked at him, and Robert Jordan knew he trusted him. Thou couldst not send me and another with the small machine gun? It would be useless, Robert Jordan said. He thought he saw something that he was looking for, but it was a hawk that slid down into the wind and then rose above the line of the farthest pine woods. It would be useless if we all went, he said. Just then, the firing doubled in intensity, and in it was the heavy bumping of hand grenades. Oh, obscenity, then, Primitivo said with an absolute devoutness of blasphemy, tears in his eyes and his cheeks twitching. Oh God and the Virgin, obscenity them in the milk of their faith, of their filth. Obscenity them in the milk of their filth. Calm thyself, Robert Jordan said. You will be fighting them soon enough. Here comes the woman. Pilar was climbing up to them, making heavy going of it in the boulders. Primitivo kept saying, obscenity them, O God and the Virgin, befoul them. Each time for firing rolled down the wind, and Robert Jordan climbed heavily over the last boulder. The binoculars, she said, and lifted their strap over her head. So it has come to Sordo. Yes. Pobre, she said in commiseration. Poor Sordo. She was breathing heavily from the climb, and she took hold of Robert Jordan's hand and gripped it tight in hers as she looked out over the country. How does the combat seem? Bad. Very bad. He's Hodido? I believe so. Pobre, she said. Doubtless, because of the horses. Probably. Pobre, Pilar said. Pobre, pobre, pobre. Then, pobre, pobre. Then, Raphael recounted to me all the entire novel of Dung about cavalry. What came? Raphael recounted me all of an entire novel of Dung about cavalry. What came? A patrol and part of a squadron. Up to what point? Robert Jordan pointed out where the patrol had stopped and showed her where the gun was hidden. From where they stood, they could just see one of Augustine's boots protruding from the rear of the blind. The gypsy said they rode to where the gun muzzle pressed against the chest of the horse of the leader. Pilar said, "What a race! Eyeglasses were in the cave." Have you packed? All that can be taken. Is there news of Pablo? He was 40 minutes ahead of the cavalry. They took his trail. Pilar grinned at him. She still held his hand. Now she dropped it. We'll never see him, she said. Now for Sordo, can we do anything? Nothing. Pobre, she said. I was fond of Sordo. Thou art sure that he is Hodido. Yes, I have seen much cavalry. More than were here. Another full troop on their way up there. Listen to it, Pilar said. Pobre, pobre, pobre Sordo. They listened to the firing. Primitivo wanted to go up there. Robert Jordan said, Art thou crazy? Pilar said to the flat-faced man, What kind of locos are we producing here? I wish to aid them. Que va, Pilar said, another romantic. Dost thou not believe thou wilt die quick enough here without useless voyages? Robert Jordan looked at her, at the heavy brown face with the high Indian cheekbones, the wide-set dark eyes, and the laughing mouth with the heavy, bitter upper lip. Thou must act like a man, she said to Primitivo, a grown man, you with your gray hairs and all. Don't joke at me, Primitivo said sullenly. If a man has a little heart and a little imagination, he should learn to control them, Pilar said. Thou wilt die soon enough with us. There is no need to seek that with strangers. As for thy imagination, the gypsy has enough for all. What a novel, he told me. If thou hast seen it, thou wouldst not call it a novel, Primitivo said. There was a moment of great gravity. Que va, Pilar said. Some cavalry rode here, and they rode away, and you all make yourselves a heroism. It is to this we have come with so much in action. And this of Sordo is not grave, Primitivo said contemptuously now. He suffered visibly each time the firing came down the wind, and he wanted either to go to the combat or have Pilar go and leave him alone. Total que, Pilar said. It has come, so it has come. Don't lose thy cojones for the misfortune of another. Go defile thyself, Primitivo said. There are women of a stupidity and brutality that is insupportable. In order to support and aid those men poorly equipped for procreation, Pilar said, there is nothing, so to see I am going. Just then Robert Jordan heard the plane high overhead. He looked up, and in the high sky, it looked to be the same observation plane that he had seen earlier in the morning. Now it was returning from the direction of the lines, and it was moving in the direction of the high country where El Sordo was being attacked. There's the bad luck bird, Pilar said. Will it see what goes on there? Surely, Robert Jordan said, if they are not blind. They watched the plane moving high and silvery and steady in the sunlight. It was coming from the left, and they could see the round discs of light the two propellers made. Keep down, Robert Jordan said. Then the plane was overhead, its shadows passing over the open glade, the throbbing reaching its maximum of portent. Then it was past and headed toward the top of the valley. They watched it go steadily on its course until it was just out of sight, and then they saw it coming back in a wide, dipping circle, to circle twice over the high country, and then disappear in the direction of Segovia. Robert Jordan looked at Pilar. There was a perspiration on her forehead, and she shook her head. She had been holding her lower lip between her teeth. For each one there is something, she said. For me it is those. Thou hast not caught my fear, Primitivo said sarcastically. Nay, she put her hand on his shoulder. Thou hast no fear to catch, I know that. I am sorry I joked too roughly with thee. We are all in the same cauldron. Then she spoke to Robert Jordan. I will send up food and wine. Dost need anything more? Not in this moment. Where are the others? Thy reserve is intact, below with the horses, she grinned. Everything is out of sight. Everything to go is ready. Maria is with thy material. If by any chance we should have aviation, keep her in the cave. Yes, my lord Ingles, Pilar said. Thy gypsy, I give him to thee. I have sent to gather mushrooms to cook with the hares. There are many mushrooms now, and it seemed to me we might as well eat the hares, although they would be better tomorrow or the day after. I think it is best to eat them, Robert Jordan said, and Pilar put her big hand on his shoulder, where the strap of the submachine gun crossed his chest, then reached up and mussed his hair with her fingers. What an Ingles, Pilar said. I will send the Maria with the punchero when they are cooked. The firing from far away and above had almost died out, and now there was only an occasional shot. You think it is over? Pilar asked. No, Robert Jordan said, from the sound that we have heard they have attacked and been beaten off. Now I would say the attackers have them surrounded. They have taken cover and they wait for the planes. Pilar spoke to Primitivo. Thou dost understand there was no intent to insult thee. Ya lo sé, said Primitivo. I have put up with worse than that from thee. Thou hast a vile tongue. But watch thy mouth, woman. Sorda was a good comrade of mine. And not of mine? Pilar asked him. Listen, Flatface. In war, one cannot say what one feels. We have enough of our own without taking Sordo's. Primitillo was still sullen. You should take a physic, Pilar told him. Now I go to prepare the meal. Did you bring the documentation of Raquette? Raquette? Robert Jordan asked her. How stupid I am, she said. I forgot it. I will send Maria. End of chapter 25. 26. Chapter 26. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon before the planes came. The snow had all been gone by noon, and the rocks were hot now in the sun. There were no clouds in the sky. And Robert Jordan sat in the sun. There were no clouds in the sky, and Robert Jordan sat in the sun, sat in the rocks with his shirt off, browning his back in the sun, and reading the letters that had been in the pockets of the dead cavalryman. From time to time he would stop reading to look across the open slope through the line of the timber, look over the high country above, and then return to the letters. No more cavalry had appeared. At intervals, there would be the sound of a shot from the direction of El Sordo's camp, but the firing was desultory. From examining his military papers, he knew the boy was from Tafalla in Navarra, 21 years old, unmarried, and son of a blacksmith. His regiment was the Nth Cavalry, which surprised Robert Jordan, for he had believed that regiment to be in the north. He was a Carlist and had been wounded at the fighting for Irun at the start of the war. I've probably seen him run through the streets ahead of the bull with Faria and Pamplona, Robert Jordan thought. You never kill anyone that you want to kill in a war, he said to himself. Well, hardly ever, he amended and went on reading the letters. The first letter, hardly ever. The first letter he read was very formal, very carefully written, and dealt almost entirely with local happenings. They were from his sister, and Robert Jordan learned that everything was all right in Tafalla. The father was well, that mother was the same as always, but with certain complaints about her back. But she hoped he was well and not in too great danger, and she was happy he was doing away with the Reds to liberate Spain from the domination of the Marxist hordes. Then there was a list of those boys from Tafalla who had been killed or badly wounded since she wrote last. She mentioned 10 who were killed. That is a great many for a town the size of Tafalla, Robert Jordan thought. There was quite a lot of religion in the letter, and she prayed to Saint Anthony, to the Blessed Virgin of Pilar, and to others, and to other virgins to protect him, and she wanted him never to forget that he was also protected by the Sacred Heart of Jesus that he wore still. She trusted at all times over his own heart, where it had been proven innumerable. This was underlined. Times to have the power of stopping bullets. She was, as always, his loving sister, Concha. This letter was a little stained around the edges, and Robert Jordan put it carefully back with the military papers and opened the letter with a less severe handwriting. It was from the boy's novia, his fiancée, and it was quietly, formally, and completely hysterical with concern for his safety. Robert Jordan read it through and then put all the letters together with the papers into his hip pocket. He did not want to read the other letters. I guess I've done my good deed for today, he said to himself. I guess you have, all right, he repeated. What are those you are reading? Primitivo asked him. The documentation and the letters of the Riquete we shot this morning. You want to see it? I can't read, Primitivo said. Was there anything interesting? No, Robert Jordan told him. They are our personal letters. How are things going where he came from? Can you tell from the letters? They seem to be going all right, Robert Jordan said. There are many losses in his town. He looked down to where the blind for the automatic rifle had been changed a little and improved after the snow melted. It looked convincing enough. He looked off across the country. From what town is he? Primitivo asked. Tafalla, Robert Jordan told him. All right, he said to himself. I'm sorry if that does any good. It doesn't, he said to himself. All right, then drop it, he said to himself. All right, it's dropped. But it would not drop that easily. How many is it that you have killed? He asked himself. I don't know. Do you think you have a right to kill anyone? No, but I have to. How many of those you have killed have been real fascists? Very few. But they are all the enemy to whose force we are opposing force. But you like the people of Navarra better than those of any other part of Spain. Yes. And you kill them. Yes. If you don't believe it, go down there to the camp. Don't you know it is wrong to kill? Yes. But you do it. Yes. And you still believe absolutely that your cause is right. Yes. It is right, he told himself, not reassuringly, but proudly. I believe in the people and their right to govern themselves as they wish. But you mustn't believe in killing, he told himself. You must do it as a necessity, but you must not believe in it. If you believe in it, the whole thing is wrong. But how many do you suppose you have killed? I don't know, because I won't keep track. But do you know? Yes. How many? You can't be sure how many. Blowing the trains, you kill many. Very many. But you can't be sure. But of those you are sure of. More than 20. And of those, how many were real fascists? 2 that I am sure of, because I had to shoot them when we took them prisoners at Uzera. You did not mind that? No. Nor did you like it? No. I decided never to do it again. I have avoided it. I have avoided killing those who are unarmed. Listen, he told himself, you better cut this out. This is very bad for you and for your work. Then himself said back to him, you listen, see? Because you are doing something very serious, and I have to see you understand it all the time. I have to keep you straight in your head. Because if you are not absolutely straight in your head, you have no right to do the things you do. For all of them are crimes, and no man has a right to take another man's life unless it is to prevent something wrong happening to other people, something worse happening to other people. So get it straight and do not lie to yourself. But I won't keep account of people I have killed as though it were a trophy record or a disgusting business like notches in a gun, he told himself. I have a right to not keep count, and I have a right to forget them. No, himself said, you have no right to forget anything. You have no right to shut your eyes to any of it, nor any right to forget any of it, nor to soften it, nor to change it. Shut up, he told himself. You're getting awfully pompous. Nor ever to deceive yourself about it, himself went on. All right, he told himself. Thanks for all the good advice. And is it all right for me to love Maria? Yes, himself said. Even if there isn't supposed to be any such thing as love in a purely materialistic conception of society. Since when did you ever have any such conception? Himself asked. Never. And you never could have. You're not a real Marxist, and you know it. You believe in liberty, equality, and fraternity. You believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Don't ever kid yourself with too much dialectics. They are for some, but not for you. You have to know them in order not to be a sucker. You have to put many things in abeyance to win a war. If this war is lost, all of those things are lost. But afterwards, you can discard what you do not believe in. There's plenty you do not believe in, and plenty that you do believe in. And another thing, don't ever kid yourself about loving someone. It is just that most people are not lucky enough ever to have it. You never had it before, and now you have it. What you have with Maria, whether it lasts just through today and a part of tomorrow, or whether it lasts for a long life, is the most important thing that can happen to a human being. There will always be people who say it does not exist because they cannot have it. But I tell you, it is true, and that you have it, and that you are lucky even if you die tomorrow. Cut out the dying stuff, he said to him. That's not the way we talk. That's the way our friends, the anarchists, talk. Whenever things get really bad, they want to set fire to something and to die. It's a very odd kind of mind they have. Very odd. Well, we're getting through today, old timer, he told himself. It's nearly 3 o'clock now, and there is going to be some food sooner or later. They are still shooting up at Sordo's, which means they have him surrounded and are waiting to bring up more people, probably. Though they have to make it before dark. I wonder what it is like up at Sordo's. That's what we all have to expect, given enough time. I imagine it is not too jovial up at Sordo's. We certainly got Sordo into a fine jam with that horse business. How does it go in Spanish? Un callejón sin salida. A passageway with no exit. I suppose I could go through with it all right. You only have to do it once, and it is soon over with. But wouldn't it be a luxury to fight in a war sometime where, when you were surrounded, you could surrender? Estamos copado, copa, cop, copados. We are surrounded. That was the great panic cry of this war. Then the next thing was that you were shot, with nothing bad before if you were lucky. Sordo wouldn't be lucky that way. Neither would they when the time ever came. It was 3 o'clock. Then he heard the far off, distant throbbing, and looking up, he saw the plains. This is a pretty long chapter, so I will read it later. So that was chapters 24, 25, 26.